Good morning, everybody. Wow. Can you hear me? All right. Okay. I think they can hear me and they can hear me. We're good. I want to welcome everybody to worship this morning. How we are still outside with the sun shining and habitable temperatures, we don't want to even ask. It's fantastic. This is great. And we're so glad that this has continued. And meeting a little bit later on has really helped to be able to do this. So we hope it keeps going forward. There are lots of different things that are going on, and Church Council's meeting tomorrow night to continue to talk about all the things still on our plate, things we want to make plans for as we move forward. I can tell you from just this past week, Board of Christian Education got together, our Board of Membership community just recently was together and talking. Everybody's trying to figure out the best way for this church to go ahead and to connect with each other and also to serve those around us in these very interesting times. So if you have ideas, we'd love to hear them. If you have some energy to be a part of this, the planning and the organizing, we'd love to have that as well. And a lot of the discussion is taking place, online. So in terms of being able to connect with people and be available, hopefully that might be something that's more accessible to people right now. Some announcements that I want to share as we're getting started here, so bear with me if you don't mind. One of them is, you've heard us plugging the WACC socks. Every Sunday up here talking about them. It's good to know the difference that that's making. So far from the sold and the registrations from the 5K to Gifts of Love. And there are still more socks. They're $10 each. Yeah, that's good. Good start. Mary is our dealer of socks, all the different sizes. If you have interest, if you want to get a cute gift for somebody, continue that effort, and we will continue to share that money with Gifts of Love. So we're grateful for that. In addition, a few other announcements around Christian education. One is there was a different schedule this weekend for youth group activities, so there will not be a teen 7th through 12th grade youth group after church today. So they get a little break from that, but next week they're invited to come after church for pumpkin carving and s'mores. So we hope they'll make it out and have a good time with that. And then coming up on Halloween, which falls on a Saturday this year, we wanted to try to come up with a safe activity and not have people miss out. Ooh, peek and roll. Sorry. I was doing that, don't turn around. There we go. So we want to have a safe way for folks and families to celebrate Halloween. And so what we're doing is to have a trunk or treat out here in the parking lot. And this is just for folks who register to come and register to help. So we want to make sure that it's safe and controlled. And so we're asking people to go to the same place that you let us know if you're coming to the worship service on Sunday. There's an item there for Halloween, to either say that you're going to bring trick-or-treaters or to say that you're going to come and set up your car and be ready to decorate, do whatever, and to share some treats with folks. We'd love for people to participate in this. We've actually shortened the time window from 4 to 5 on Halloween so that people don't have to hang out a long time to be able to do this and make it more concentrated. So take a look at that and see if that would be meaningful for any of the young folks in your life, or if it'd be a nice way to be able to celebrate it when it might in the traditional sense. So those are some of those pieces. In addition, a few other things to highlight. One of them is this Tuesday night will be our next Bible study, and we're looking at the Bible and the Reformation. It is more interesting than it sounds. So we had a great discussion last time, 2 weeks ago, about this. We invite anybody to jump in whenever they want. We're using resources from Yale Divinity School, and they've been really great about sharing those with folks. It's going to be meeting a Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. So let me know if you have questions. I'm happy to get you up to speed and help you join in. Also, the next 2 Saturdays during the daytime, they're going to be having the virtual Super Saturday. And this has been something for Southern New England, for our denomination, where they've had an event typically where folks come together and do workshops and learn different things. And this is both ministers and staff, but also people in the church in different roles. To be able to do this time, they're going ahead and offer those virtually on the computer, and they're saying $10 per workshop. And if you have interest, if that's something you would like to look at, happy to go ahead and point you in the right direction, and happy to go ahead and support you financially to take part in it so that you would be able to share those gifts you get from that with the church. So just let me know if you're interested, but the deadline for registration is coming up tomorrow or the next day, I think. It's very soon, tomorrow. So if you have interest, we've been publishing it, but I wanted to just get that out in front of you. Also, speaking of so much activity, we have a new book group that our Christian Education Board has put together, and they're going to be meeting on November 1st. So you want to look at that if you're interested to jump in and be read and ready for that. And the basket in front of me here, and it's Food Basket Sunday. And we do this on the third Sunday of every month just to have a reminder as we think about the need to go ahead and give in many different ways of our life and to prioritize that. So we know that folks drop stuff off all the time or give directly to places like Gifts of Love where we share these resources. We want to ask that we would continue that and be mindful of opportunities to help out and the need that exists, and to use an occasion like this to be prayerful and to think about all the different ways that we really can. And then finally for me, the other thing is just a reminder that throughout this month, we are collecting resources for the Neighbors in Need offering for the United Church of Christ. This goes towards justice efforts. It also looks at ministries with the Native American communities and looks at helping those who are new to our country. And so there's a lot of different places that it touches lives. If you want to give to that, you just have to let us know it's for Neighbors in Need. And there is a way on our website in the online donations, you can select that as one of the options about where gifts can go. So just a reminder on that. Are there other announcements, other news we want to make sure we share as we get started here this morning? No? I've stunned you with my loud feedback there? All right. Well, we will keep going then, and we will share this time of worship with one another and with those who are at home worshiping with us. The meditation that I want to share with you today, I'm going to do badly with this last name, but the author is Dag Hammarskjöld, and it's a 20th century person. Die when we cease to believe in a personal deity. But we die on the day when our lives cease to be illuminated by the steady radiance, renewed daily, of a wonder, the source of which is beyond all reason. And I think that's beautiful to talk about how important it is to have that sense of wonder in our lives and to hold on to that. Folks, if you would join your heart with mine in prayer, we'll begin by sharing this moment and then lifting up the prayer that our Savior taught us. So let's pray together. God, as we come here again on a beautiful day, we feel blessed. We ask that you would be here truly within our hearts, that you would inspire us, that you would help us to feel connected in a time where that's very difficult, and that you would remind us that as your body here in the world, there are tremendous things to share the news of your love, helping to share that good news broadly with everyone that we meet, finding ways to reach out and help those who find themselves in difficult circumstances, and also, God, opening our minds so that we might listen, we might be attentive, we might be in prayer, we might find how it is that you are leading us today so that we can mindfully follow it and help to foster your kingdom here in this world. We pray all of these things even as we now join together and share aloud the prayer our Savior taught us, praying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. So we're going to share our first hymn right now. It's Rock of Ages Cleft for Me, and it's something that connects directly to one of the readings we're going to hear a little bit later on.
Rock of ages cleft for me, let me hide myself in thee. Let the water and the blood from thy wounded
about now? Okay. My mic was farther away than Brian's. How about that? Yeah? Sweet. Speaking of Brian, at the end of every service, the past couple weeks, he's taken the time to thank Hal and our deacons and Andre and Don and everybody who's made these services possible, but he hasn't thanked himself, which I guess is good. But we can thank him. I can thank him. So if we could just take a minute to thank Brian for everything he's done these past 9,000 years to make it possible. So thank you, Brian. So, I don't know if you know this, you probably don't, but I actually name all of my little children's times, and this one is entitled, Is It Over Yet? So as we continue on Moses' story today, we've been following him for approximately the past 10 weeks, which is basically nothing in Corona times. So I was prepping for this Sunday's Sunday school lesson. I was thinking, come on, more Moses, is it over yet? To be fair, we followed him from his birth until his adulthood, and according to my light research, he's comfortably in his middle-aged years. However, he lives to be 120 years old, so we've got a ways to go yet. As I stopped to think about my annoyance of yet another chapter of Moses' life, I thought, how cool would it be if we spent this much time learning about every person in our circle, but before thousands of years had passed after they died? What if we took the time today, on this perfect fall day, to ask an important person in our lives, tell me your story. I challenge each of you, in person or online, age 3, 10, 16, 27, 52, 89, or 120, to find out someone's story as thoroughly as we've been learning that of Moses. And then be sure to tell yours too. Everyone's got a story. Please join me in prayer. God, as we continue learning about the awesome journey of Moses, help us to find ways to connect our own stories to each other here on your earth. Guide us to listen with prayerful hearts and minds brought forth through your everlasting love. Amen. And now for today's readings. The first reading is from the book of Exodus, chapter 33, verses 12 through 23. Moses said to the Lord, "See, you have said to me, 'Bring up this people,' but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, 'I know you by name,' and you have also found favor in my sight. Now if I have found favor in your sight, show me your ways, so that I may know you and find favor in your sight. Consider, too, that this nation is your people." He said, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." And he said to him, "If your presence will not go, do not carry us up from here. For how shall it be known that I have found favor in your sight, and I your people, unless you go with us? In this way we shall be distinct and on the face of the earth." The Lord said to Moses, "I will do the very thing that you have asked, for you have found favor in my sight, and I know you by name." Moses said, "Show me your glory, I pray." And he said, "I will make all my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim before you the name, the Lord. And I will be, and I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. But," he said, "you cannot see my face, for no one shall see me and live." And the Lord continued, "See, there is a place by me where you shall stand on the rock, and while my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen." The second reading is from the book of Matthew, chapter 22, verses 15 through 22. Then the Pharisees went and plotted to entrap him in what he said. So they sent their disciples to him, along with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are sincere and teach the way of God in accordance with the truth, and show deference to no one, for you do not regard people with partiality. Tell us then what you think. Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not?" But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, "Why are you putting me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the tax." And they brought him a denarius. Then he said to them, "Whose head is on this, and whose title?" They answered, "The emperor's." Then he said to them, "Give therefore to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's." When they heard this, they were amazed, and they left him and went away. May God bless our hearts and minds to hear and accept these words.
Thank you, Mary. We're going to join now in hearing hymn, the hymn, "I Need Thee Every Hour."
I need thee every hour, most gracious Lord. No tender voice like thine can peace afford. I need thee, oh, I need thee every hour. I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior, I come to thee. I need thee every hour, stay thou near by. Temptations lose their power when thou art nigh. I need, oh, I need thee every hour. I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior, I come to thee. I need thee every hour. Teach me thy will, and thy rich promises be fulfilled. I need thee, oh, I need thee every hour. I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior, I come to thee.
Sorry. They've got this in place so that I don't turn around and harass them. So they've got a whole system set up so I can't face that way. I just want to say, when I came to this church, one of the questions was, would I give titles for my sermons ahead of time so they could be in the bulletin, they could be published. There was already a really great precedent set before me. Dr. Ketchum would, I understand, type up sermons and have them available in the back of the sanctuary so that folks could take them with them and kind of delve further or share them with people. So there were lots of questions about what I would be doing. And I disappointed folks right away because I said, I'm not in the practice of titling my sermons because I'm changing them constantly, all the way up to the time we get together here, and sometimes during. So I can't be sure if the title would mean anything close to what I was going to talk about, especially a few days in advance. I will say I would be very hesitant to name one of my sermons, "Is It Over Yet?" That would be, that's opening myself up to a lot of vulnerability right there. We heard that we are continuing to hear about Moses, and this summer it's been interesting to kind of delve into somebody who's famous, and yet there are lots of things that folks typically don't know about him and about what happened. So we've been taking that opportunity. This Sunday, as we roll around to hearing a bit more about the story of this journey and Moses' leadership and God's role in it, we go to a place that the end of it is familiar, but most of us wouldn't remember or know about the bit before that. We've just had the story of Moses being up there getting the Ten Commandments. We heard that people were worried after he was gone day after day. They asked for something else to worship, to go ahead and to make sure that they're going to be okay, so they make this golden calf. Moses hears from God what's going on. God is not happy. Moses goes down. The commandment tablets are broken. There is this whole scene that takes place. It's a rough time. So what follows in the passage that we have today and what surrounds it in Scripture is picking up with a relationship that is in need of mending. It's been through a difficult patch. Trust is kind of broken right now. God was getting so much closer, was offering these 10 commandments to guide this whole people and their development going forward, making everything crystal clear. But time and time again, there is this worry, there is this pulling away, and it's happened again. And so the frustration, it seems, and the disconnect is growing between God and Moses and the people. So we hear about God's anger being stayed because Moses intercedes and says, please don't be angry at your people, and talks with God and gets God to agree to not feel that way. But here, what we hear is that God says, okay, I'm not going to be angry, but from now on I'm going to send a messenger. I'm going to send an angel. And that angel is going to lead you forward. And I'm not going to do that anymore. Now it's going to be an angel who will do that. We also hear a change in language, and folks may recognize this very quickly from their own lives. Instead of God talking about the Hebrew people as my people or God's people, God refers to them as Moses' people. And I say this is familiar because if you've ever been in a household, a living situation where, say, there are children or animals, when you hear that shift happens and that person you're in a relationship with says, your child or your dog, when they're talking about them, you know right then that they're not feeling the warmest feelings towards that child or that dog. They have relegated them to your responsibility. And often there is the pushback to go ahead and say, wait a minute, no. They're yours too. Don't forget that. Don't lose that in the heat of the moment right now. And Moses does that same thing. Moses pushes back towards God and says, no, God, these are your people. Don't forget it. And Moses goes on further to say, don't send your messenger to guide us forward. Don't push away from us. Don't give up on us. Stay with us. Guide us forward. Help us to always be your people. He makes these impassioned pleas to go ahead and try to repair relationship and to come closer where there's been hurt and where there's been brokenness. And God says, yes, I will do these things. So that's pretty powerful. It's a great example for us in difficult times. But what follows is even more powerful because Moses then takes a leap forward and asks for something very intimate and something that is not deserved or a reward for anything, but rather just says from the depths of his heart, God, let me see you. And God knows that that's something that will be too overwhelming for Moses. Remember, we talked about like the Ark of the Covenant and Raiders of the Ark. You can't look at it with your eyes. It's going to be bad. It's too much. But instead, God comes up with something. He brings Moses to these rocks, to this place, and has Moses there in the cleft of the rock and places his hand there and then passes by Moses. And often we've heard the story that as God passes by, Moses is able to see kind of the back of God as God passes by, to have that kind of intimate, close, right immediate reaction and experience. There's at least one person who looks at the text and sees it a little bit differently. This is Rick Morley, is a minister. And he said, our English texts usually say that Moses could see his back, but that's an inaccurate translation. Moses caught no sight of the body of God. He saw the place where God just was. And Rick Morley goes on, because it's how I often experience God. In the busyness of life, I'm not anywhere near aware or awake enough to see God's presence. I'm answering emails, I'm visiting, I'm writing sermons, I'm picking up kids from school, I'm washing dishes. But when I look back over my day with intention, I can see God's presence so much easier. I found that really powerful. This idea of Moses seeing where God just was. And in our lives, that's so often how we recognize God. We see where God has been and the difference that has been made, and we give thanks. It's relatable. I wonder then if we have a powerful experience like that. I mean, if we were able to be that close to God's presence and really feel it, would it make our lives incredibly different? Would we be so overpowered with joy? Would we be so close to God's presence that we would pull it all together? We would make sure every moment, every second, every bit of energy that we have is devoted to God, that we would really turn things around, and that there would be no more faltering, no more times where we would worry or we would doubt or get anxious about, is God there, or what's going to become of my life? We would just fall into trust in God. I'd like to think something as powerful as the presence that Moses has there on the mountain would be able to bring that. And yet those people that have accompanied Moses have had powerful experiences of water in the midst of wasteland, of food sustaining them every day, of a pillar of cloud and fire going before them, God saving them from slavery. Over and over and over again, there are these powerful experiences, and yet we hear over and over and over again that they still fall into worry and thinking about their own priorities and struggling in very, very human ways. And it's not something that just happens thousands and thousands of years ago. We recognize it today, and Jesus, during his ministry there, being with people every day, he seems to find it a lot too. Our gospel passage today has Jesus, after offering those parables and being confronted there in Jerusalem in the final days of his life before the crucifixion, he's asked what authority he does things by people who want to trip him up and want him gone. And he offers 3 parables we've been hearing over these past weeks. He offers lessons about who he is and what he's doing and where that authority comes from, and challenges the people who are asking him. And now we hear at first that they go away and they begin to plot about how to get him arrested, how to end all this. And now a different team-up comes at him, the Pharisees and the Herodians. And I know you spent a lot of time studying the distinctions between the scribes and the Herodians and the Pharisees and all these folks. Is it enough if I just tell you that Herodians and Pharisees do not hang out? Their views on how to live life and what God wants, all those things are completely different. These are not buddies. They are united because they are against Jesus. He is rocking things and threatening things, and they want him gone. So these unlikely allies come together and they try to lay a trap for Jesus. We're in a time right now where we're hearing folks who are speaking to us and trying to get their message across, and so often there are so many questions, and they're meant to go ahead and to really pry out some truth, or to get people on one side of an issue or another issue, to kind of make sure that they can maneuver people into politically difficult situations. And that's exactly what's going on here, just as it was with the earlier question. So they come to Jesus, they set it up with all kinds of wonderful kind of, compliments, and, oh, Jesus, you're so great, and they do all this stuff, and then they lead up to it and they say, should we pay the tax to the Romans or not? Well, they hope they've got a great trap. Tom Long, one of these preaching professors, he said, essentially what they want to get here is they're going to say, are you foolish, uncompromising revolutionary whose allegiance to the kingdom of heaven is actually a political revolution in disguise? Or are you a smooth-talking street preacher who stirs up people with glib talk of God's majesty, but underneath it all advocates a get-along, go-along policy with the Roman Gentile pigs? And that's Tom Long, his language. They're trying to trap him to talk about something incredibly unpopular, this poll tax that they're supposed to pay, like everybody else is supposed to pay, to the Romans who have conquered this whole area. It was so unpopular that back in the year 6, according to Acts in the 5th chapter, there was a Jewish uprising that happens in revolt because of this tax. So think about our Tea Party here. It is so unpopular among people, it's hard to go ahead and be one who says, yeah, we should continue to pay that tax. But to not pay that tax is a crime. So Jesus begins to respond. And he frames it around the coins that tax needs to be paid in, not the local currency, but in Roman currency. And he has them produce a coin for them. Now, when they do this, it's interesting because they see themselves as religious leaders, and this debate is taking place right there at the temple, and it is against the understanding of being a faithful follower of Judaism at the time that you would have graven images of others, especially who see themselves as God, that you would have those things on you, and yet here they're able to produce one of those coins and give it to him when he asks. So he points at some of their hypocrisy right there. Why in the world would they have one of these offensive coins on them, especially in such a holy place? He takes a little jab just by asking and proving that they have one. But then he goes further, and as they have that coin, and he asks whose face is on it, whose name is on it, on that coin most likely would have been Tiberius Caesar, August, son of the divine Augustus, high priest, would have been written on it. And he gets them to go ahead and say, well, it's the emperor's coin, the emperor's on it. Well, then when he does this, he says, well, if it's the emperor's image, if it's the emperor's coin, then give unto the emperor what is the emperor's, and give to God the things that are God's. So often when we hear this passage brought up, it's used to kind of say, all right, so there's a separation then. We should do things for our government, our nation, our one side of our life, and follow that, and then keep it separate from the things that we need to do to be faithful, and kind of keep these things apart from each other. And we get that idea especially because of how we have framed our life together, our government together, and those important documents that frame this country. But most likely that's not what Jesus was saying at all. I mean, if that's what his response was, if he was just saying, okay, do things that are kind of religious and then do things that are required of you politically, I mean, that's not anything earth-shattering to go ahead and say. It's a very kind of compromising statement in the middle of them trying to pull him to one side or the other. But we hear when he answers that the people who have challenged him go away amazed at what he has said. So chances are he was saying something completely different. So he didn't say option A, refuse to pay, and he didn't say option B, pay like a good subject of the Roman Empire. He brought up some new way, this option C, and that's what got their attention and their respect and their amazement. I tried to think of a different example to really bring it to life, and I failed. So excuse me, you will have heard this one if you've been here any time before, but it really brings it home for me. Partly because it kind of is interesting to hear how others might do something. There were these three ministers, and they were discussing how it was decided how much they got paid in their little churches. And so when they were talking about it, one of them said, well, we have an unusual system at my church. When the money comes in each week, we go ahead and put it in the offering plate, and then go ahead and throw it up in the air. And on the ground, there's a circle around me. And everything that lands inside the circle, that's my pay for the week. And everything that lands outside the circle, that goes towards everything else for the church. And he figured this would be unique. Nobody else would do this. And the second one said, that's amazing, because we have virtually the same system, except it's just flipped. Everything that lands in the circle, well, that goes to the church. Everything outside of the circle, that goes to God. And the third one said, this is crazy, because I've never heard of other folks doing this, and yet we have virtually the same system, except we really don't need a circle. Because I just throw everything up in the air, and whatever God wants to keep for church things, God keeps it, and whatever lands on the ground, that's what I get paid. All right, doesn't sound too good, I'm sorry. But I guess what I want to say is they had their three different systems, and if Jesus had been there in this moment and heard that illustration about how we should use what we have, he would have had a fourth option. And that fourth option would have been, go ahead and throw it up in the air, and whatever stays up in the air, that's what truly belongs to you. But whatever lands on the ground, that belongs to God. And there is this statement in what he says, give to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, give to God the things that are God's, that is revolutionary. Because what he is saying truly is, what do you think belongs to God? If you think it's just a little bit of what you have, some small, cut-off, safe part of your life, I think Jesus would challenge you in a heartbeat about that. Instead, in this moment, what amazes those who hear him is that he comes back with a powerful statement about faith and devotion, about what we put first and what we make idols in our lives. And he says, give unto God what is God's. And if you want to truly grapple with that, if you truly want to understand what it means to love God with all of your heart and your mind and your soul, then what doesn't belong to God? What hasn't God given us in some way or another? What starts solely from our own power and ingenuity and abilities and doesn't come first from God? We frame it that way. It is a powerful understanding of who we are and what this life is. But it's also very difficult because it cuts through, and it means we've got to re-examine everything we're doing. We've got to decide, are we being good managers of what we have in our lives, of our time and our abilities and our ingenuity and even the money that we have, which some of it has to go towards demands that are placed upon us in everyday living, our taxes, putting a roof over our head, all these sorts of normal things. And yet there is this call to say all of that belongs to God. So use it the way you have to use it, but are you using it wisely? Are you using it faithfully? Are you sharing it in ways that make a difference in this world? If somebody saw all the decisions you are making on a daily basis, would they clearly understand the faith that you have that is shining out from each one of those choices? It's challenging. And I am not sitting here and pointing a finger at anybody. I would not go ahead and bring this up if I didn't acknowledge this is something that I wrestle with constantly and find myself disappointingly failing at all the time. I think most people do. There's a story that gets placed on different famous figures, but let's just go ahead and say it is a story about someone who's a beloved ruler of a country. And people just love their wisdom and their compassion, and it's a real tragedy when they hear that this person is critically ill and that his heart is giving out, and that the only hope is to find another heart to give him so that he can continue on. And they want him to continue on. So throngs gather around the palace and they shout out over and over again, "Take my heart, take my heart." They want this ruler to stay with them. They want to show their love, their devotion. And so when the ruler comes out to see these crowds as they shout out, "Take my heart, take my heart," the ruler is so moved by this and says, okay, he silences the crowd and he says, I tell you what, I am going to let go of a feather, and I'll let this feather fly out amongst you. And whomever this feather lands upon, that can be the person who gives me their heart. And so he lets loose of the feather, and the feather flies down towards the crowd in that erratic, arcing way. And they continue to shout out now, "Take my heart," except there's a pause. It's "Take my heart." And then it takes a moment to say, "Take my heart" again, because they have to, between each one, go, "Take my heart," and you can't see my lips, but I'm blowing as hard as I can. "Take my heart." As they try to make that feather fly up and go somewhere else and not land on them. So often in our hymns and our prayers, so often in our faith, we say we give everything to God. We surrender all. And how many times are we saying we surrender all even as we blow as hard as we can so that we don't actually have to do it? Today, Jesus challenges us to think about that. Amen. I don't have a feather, by the way, so you're safe, and you're also pretty far from me, so it would be a hard thing to pull off here today. See? I figured that's my good side here this morning was the whole acknowledgement earlier. I figured you must have gotten a sneak peek, which is nearly impossible because I was writing it right until I came out here. Yeah, okay, all right. When we give our offerings, I know folks wrestle with that. When folks decide whether they're going to serve on church boards or offer to go ahead and be available for a time of hands-on mission, folks struggle with that. The choices about how we spend our time, how we take that money that could be used for so many things, including a feeling of security. These are difficult, difficult choices. And it is not easy. And nothing about what I've tried to say today should tell you that it is. And yet we try to be faithful. We try to take time and really examine our choices and try our best to make sure what we decide to do and how we do it can be a reflection of what we really believe is important. So I am thankful for everybody taking that time, thinking about the ways you give of yourself, including your offerings. And I'm thankful for the continued support you offer to the church. I don't know if you use the circle system to do it. However you do it, very grateful. And we're going to ask that we dedicate those gifts, but we're also going to lift up our prayers to be dedicated as well as a people of God. One of the prayers we're going to continue is for Callahan, for the young college student with such difficult injuries. We're going to keep Callahan in our prayers. We're also going to offer prayers for a young woman named Julie, and great difficulty she's going through and seeking help right now. So we're going to offer our prayers for Julie as well. Folks, are there other prayers, either individually or for wider situations, joys or concerns that anybody else wants to make sure we raise today? Continue prayers for Mary's student that we began last week, and continue those. Absolutely. One of the dogs wants to go ahead and offer a prayer. Excellent. I love those. Well, I know we have prayers within our hearts, and I would hope that everybody here would know that God not only is able to hear those prayers, but wants to hear those prayers. So feel free to lift them to God here and in different moments of your life, and know that you're never apart from God, and God will hear them. So let's join our hearts together and offer our prayers today. God, as we gather here, the first prayer just has to be thank you in a selfish way. The water and the rain was so badly needed, and yet we are so grateful to have this chance right now to be out here and worshiping. A friend just sent me this morning a picture of light snow on their yard this morning, so we know it's not the same everywhere. God, thank you for this chance for us. Thank you for being with us in times of difficulty. We have folks right now that are in the process of saying goodbye to loved ones and beloved animals, and we want to ask God that you would be with them in those difficult times, and that you would be a comfort and a guide. We ask God, where there are situations where folks are calling for healing in their lives, we know that you know us completely in ways that we are not even close to understanding. So we ask that you would offer your gift of healing, and that you also would give wisdom and guidance to those who step forward and give all that they have to assist in that process. We also ask God for those who are in times of turmoil, where they need wisdom, or they need strength, they need a sense of peace or your presence. God, that they would powerfully feel those gifts, and they would know that you are there, and that they can trust in them and lean in them in this difficult time. And God, we give thanks. We've been praying about the fires out west, and we find that there has been progress after a long time, and we continue to pray for those who are affected and the long-term effects. We ask that you would continue to be with those who are putting themselves there on the front lines to help every single day. We ask that you would be with those who are putting themselves on the front lines here, going forward, being in vulnerable situations to help those who still are in need. We give thanks for them, and we ask that you would be with them in different ways that they need for support for them and for their families. And we ask, God, as we move forward as a country right now, that you would help us to be a community, to listen to each other, to know that we come from different experiences and different understandings, but still to look around us and see human beings, your children, and find that we are connected, that we are one in a powerful way. Help us to remember that, and help us to experience that, and help us to reflect that in what we say and in what we do. We pray all of these things now in the name of our Savior, who has brought us together in this place or wherever we are gathered in the Spirit. Amen. So as we move to the conclusion of our service, we'll have our final hymn, Let Us Now Depart in Thy Peace.
Let us now depart in thy peace, blessed Jesus. Send us to our homes with God's love in our hearts. Let not the busy world claim all our loyalties. Keep us ever mindful, dear Lord, of thee.
Folks, thank you for coming, and thank you for being a part of our worship wherever you are or whatever. As we conclude, I just want to offer these final words of blessing and peace for our worship today, and I'll take them from Ephesians chapter 3, verses 17 through 19. May Christ dwell in your hearts through faith, that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may have strength to comprehend with all of the saints what is the breadth and length and height and depth, and to know the love of Christ that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled with all the fullness of God. Amen.